Congressman Khanna has been relentless in his pursuit of transparency as he tries to achieve closure and justice for the victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and others. He, alongside Congressman Thomas Massie, were the co-sponsors of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a federal law that the Trump administration and the Trump DOJ are openly flouting. But Khanna, he's pushing forward, and he is making sure that there truly is justice for those victims and survivors. I got the chance to sit down with him today to get the absolute latest, and he joins me now. And joining me now is a true fighter for justice, Congressman Khanna. Congressman, there's a million things I want to ask, but I kind of want to just start with the logistics, because I and other Americans are probably very curious about how the DOJ has set up the opportunity for you and other members of Congress to come and view the unredacted. And I'm going to put that in quotes because you and I both know they're not really unredacted at this point. But is it literally just, as Congressman Jamie Raskin has said, is it literally just a computer terminal? You have to come, give them 24 hours notice. You can't bring electronic equipment. You come with a pen and a paper at most, maybe. And then you have to just put in search terms, or how is this working out for you?
Yes, I felt like I was back as a first-year law associate. You basically go into a room. There are 4 computers. You take documents in there. You only get 1 hour. They gave, I think, 2 hours to Massie and me because we were the authors of the law. And then you literally put in the number. And the document comes up, and then you see the redacted version of the document and quote unquote the unredacted version. The people there in the room are very polite, very thoughtful, very helpful. They're career justice officials, and they help you in putting the number in. The problem isn't them. The problem is that they redacted a lot of this, scrubbed a lot of this back in March at the FBI. And the main information that we want was scrubbed well before it even got to justice.
Okay, so let me backtrack for a second. Are you putting in a bait stamp number to be able to look at a document?
Exactly. Yeah, a bait stamp number. I mean, you're a litigator, so you know.
Well, but I'm like stunned because, and my viewers who are very well attuned to these legal things understand the bait step number when you're looking at the EFTA, Epstein Files Transparency Act number at the bottom right corner of the document. Right. You mean to tell me you can't actually go in and search for a term? You actually have to input a specific document number to be able to view it?
You do. When I tried to search for some of the terms, it's not a great search. And so, in fact, I tried to search for one of the prominent names, and none of the name documents came up without the name. And the guy next to me said, "Yeah, I guess the search isn't really working." So what was working was the Bates number. We put in the Bates number, the document comes up, and then you can see the unredacted version of the document, quote unquote unredacted version.
And let's dive into this for this unredacted version. So what has been released publicly are woefully inadequate failures when it comes to appropriate redactions. And we're going to get to that in a second when it comes to compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. But if you put in a bait stamp document number, when it comes up, you're still not seeing certain information in that document?
So first of all, when you put up the number, what comes up is the redacted document. Then you can click and you can see the quote unquote unredacted document. There are 2 sets of redactions that took place. One was the redactions of the Justice Department. And some of those redactions were legitimate. They were genuinely trying to protect some survivors. And so some of the most sensational emails out there where they say, okay, I want a naughty girl, or I want a 10-year-old girl, and the sender is blocked out. In a number of those cases, those were women. They could have been survivors, and that was a legitimate redaction. So you can see the unredacted version. The problem is twofold. One, the Justice Department redacted some of the men who were listed as co-conspirators. And Massie and I, in 2 hours, found 6 men who they shouldn't have redacted, who then Justice admitted they've got wrong. I went on the floor and read the names of those 6 men, and Justice acknowledged that they shouldn't have been redacted and have unredacted them. So in some cases, even in the 3 million files that they have shown over redactions. And if I could find 6 of them with Massie in 2 hours, there are probably dozens of these men who have been incorrectly redacted by justice. But then there's a second order point, which is that they got documents that already had been redacted by the FBI that had nothing to do with the Justice Department redactions. I'd say that's 70% of the redactions. And because your audience is very technical, they'll get this, that this is the most critical part, because these are the F-302 statements. This is where the survivors told the FBI agents, here are the men who raped me, who abused me, who were on the island. All of that is redacted. And the DOJ just puts their hands up. Well, what can we do? We got these documents redacted. We just uploaded them.
You also just said a few minutes ago, were you only allotted an hour of time, even though they said that they were open from 9 to 6, Monday through Friday?
Well, we got the courtesy 2 hours because Massey and I are the co-authors. But yes, we got two hours of time. And, the idea, though, also that they would be expecting members of Congress, instead of legislating and working, to be doing document review is just absurd. It's not the members of Congress's job to ensure compliance with the law. And this is why Massey and I genuinely asked Judge Berman, we lost the motion, but asked him to appoint a special master. I mean, there should be someone appointed to look at these documents and make those decisions.
Yeah, and I was truly disappointed that you didn't get the special master appointed, because as my viewers know, that special master wouldn't have been able to drive forward compliance and transparency, and to also seek sanctions in the event that non-compliance was happening. I think this is actually a great segue to me to ask you about the non-compliance. I have gone over the Epstein Files Transparency Act word by word on this channel, and I am stuck on the following. One, as you just mentioned, the FBI scrubbed these Epstein files back in March of 2025, did their own version of redactions, turned them over to the DOJ, who then did their version of redactions. And yet the Epstein Files Transparency Act that you and Tom Massey co-sponsored, requires all of it to be given over, accepting very narrow, limited exceptions. I've seen redactions of emails, names, things that clearly did not meet the law. How is this going on, Congressman, where you have now been knocking on the door of the DOJ saying this is illegal, what DOJ is doing?
Well, thank you for summarizing. That's the best summary I've heard. And I've done a number of these interviews, because that's exactly right. There are two different redactions that were going on. There's the original FBI redaction in March, where Donald Trump's ordered the FBI to say, get this stuff cleaned up. And they were supposed to unscrub that based on our law. We knew that when we were drafting the law. We said, we want those FBI files. You can't be hiding those files. They didn't do that. And they just did a second round of redactions at the Justice Department. And what they're showing members now is the unredacted version of the Justice Department's redactions, not the original redactions. And so they're in blatant violation of the law. And we need to continue to pursue this. Now, the reality is they have been not cooperative from day one. And Massey and I didn't think we would get this far, where we've gotten half the files released, where we've gotten so many emails that implicate rich and powerful people released, where the British monarchy is in trouble, the British government's in trouble, the Norwegian monarchy is in trouble, other governments are investigating in ways we aren't. So they have been pushed. And the reason I say all that is that it's not futile. We need to keep pushing because what the last year shows is when we push, they do fold, but it is just a painful process.
Congressman, another part of the EFTA, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, requires that any redactions, any and all redactions, be accompanied by a written justification that is provided to members of Congress, as well as published in the Federal Register. Have you received any written justification so far from the DOJ for the redactions and the withholding of information that was provided so far to the public?
We have not. They have 15 days to do it from the last release, and I'm not sure if it's gotten to the 15-day deadline. They're not very good about getting to the deadline. They did do it in the first release in December. They sent that, but that's not going to be very helpful, because what they will say is, well, these are survivors. And in some cases, the Justice Department's second redactions, quite a few of them were legitimate. But when they are overbroad, they're just going to say, oh, that was carelessness. So it's not going to tell us anything. And they're not going to address the FBI's original redactions. They'll just say, oh, we got the documents redacted. So, they'll point to cases where there were sensational emails where people say, well, why is the sender blocked out? And in some cases, the sender should have been blocked out because it was a survivor who also may have been complicit. But those are the rare cases.
You know what really kind of bothers me, and you would appreciate this? They're very big on strict construction of statutes over on the other side of the aisle, Republicans especially, right? And if you do strict construction of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, the law that you and Tom Massey co-sponsored, it didn't say the rolling basis upon which documents are produced. There was a 30-day deadline that has now come and gone. And according to the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, there's still at least 3 million other documents that we haven't actually had the chance to see. I want to ask you about a letter you sent to Todd Blanche. You also did a post on social media where you said to basically Todd Blanche, we need to sit down and have a meeting because these redactions are not compliant with the law. And we also need to figure out why we're not getting the entirety of the documents as is required. Has Todd Blanche made any efforts to sit down with you and Tom Massey?
He is not, and he's very selective in what he replies to. So when Massey and I said, look, you've missed these men and they should be out there, he was kind of caught, and he actually replied saying, well, you're getting me on a technicality. Yes, well, we're going to unredact these men. They were in other parts of the file. But when I asked him the more basic question, which is why were the FBI files scrubbed, and are you going to unscrub those? He just chooses not to respond. And he has chosen to duck a meeting. We'll see tomorrow what Pam Bondi says. But the reality is they are not being transparent. And people say, well, do folks really care about transparency? They care about it in the sense that they know that rich and powerful people shouldn't be above the law, and that you have a corrupt class here who did the most heinous things in going to this island where young girls were being raped, where young girls were being paraded around naked, and they went with impunity. And Donald Trump said he was going to clean it all up. He said he was going to hold these people accountable. And now he's become part of the class, the Epstein class that he said he was going to tear down. And people are angry. They're angry and they feel betrayed. And you have Sean Ryan, one of the biggest podcasters. I was on his show a week ago. He said, I voted for Trump. I voted for Epstein, for Vance. I'm done. I'm done. He's protecting pedophiles. And the anger in his own base and the sense of betrayal is very deep on this issue.
Yeah, I actually saw. He said Todd Blanche had the gall and the audacity to say that it's not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, of course it's a crime to party with Jeffrey. We've seen what happened at Jeffrey Epstein's party. So I saw Sean Ryan say that. You know, one of the things that I think Todd Blanche, and you've mentioned this as well, that Todd Blanche needs to account for is what was the quid pro quo with Ghislaine Maxwell? What a waste of time that Ghislaine Maxwell didn't even properly invoke her Fifth Amendment privilege yesterday. She appeared via video conference. She blanket invoked Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, but she said explicitly that if she got clemency from Donald Trump, she would answer questions. It sounds to me as if there is a very public open ask for clemency, pardon, or commutation from Donald Trump, and suddenly Ghislaine Maxwell will find Jesus and decide that she wants to be honest?
Well, yeah. I mean, she was basically saying, I know the names of other rich and powerful people who raped these girls. I know who trafficked these girls. But I'm not going to say who these people are unless you give me clemency, unless you commute my sentence and let me out of jail. It was the most unethical, blatant appeal for being released that I've seen. And of course, she answered all of Todd Blanche's questions months ago, but she refused to answer any questions from members of Congress, Republican or Democrat, about who these other people were on the island. How does that incriminate her? Of course it doesn't. She's just choosing not to be truthful.
Well, I did say I want her to rot in her Fifth Amendment. So another important issue, though, that you have been very open about, and I have in front of me a fantastic House Resolution 1030 that you introduced on February 2nd of this year. And it is a resolution to end ICE abuse. And you set forth, because we have that DHS funding deadline coming up on Friday that we're all watching, right? And you set up the following 10 points that would be a way to end ICE abuse. All of things that I've been saying, including no new funding for DHS. I don't know why they would need it after the big bullshit bill from last year.
Exactly.
But point number 2, Congressman Khanna, I have been talking about, and I kind of feel like I'm grateful you're focusing on it, repealing the $75 billion that ICE already got through that big bullshit bill. I'm trying to tell people, look, not giving new funding to DHS is one thing, but they already got $75 billion from American taxpayers last year that didn't go to affordable health care, but went to fund terroristic abuse of citizens and non-citizens on our streets. How important is it for the repealing part of your resolution to make sure that people understand that?
That needs to be the fight. And Bernie Sanders actually introduced that amendment. Fortunately, he got every Democrat on board. He didn't get any Republicans. But here's the bottom line. We need to hold firm, not an additional dollar to Donald Trump's ICE. I don't care if it's for 2 weeks or 2 years or the entirety of his term, until we repeal that $75 billion and until we tear down this agency and have a new agency that starts upholding human rights and constitutional rights. And that's not defunding the organization. As you pointed out, they already have more money than Joe Biden gave them. So I don't understand how this is a debate. And what I don't want to see happen with the Democratic Party is we get some concession on masks or body cameras, and then we fund them. But funding them on top of the $75 billion. This is a time for moral clarity, not an additional dollar for Donald Trump's terms, Donald Trump's ICE, until he makes the changes that we need in terms of the agency and in terms of repealing that $75 billion.
Well, it has been unceasingly frustrating to hear Democrats speak about things like, well, we're going to stop the warrantless entries into people's homes. And I'm like, but that's the law. Why are we negotiating against ourselves, right? You would never bid against yourself. I would always tell a client, going into negotiations, we're not going to bid against ourselves. And I feel like the Democrats are kind of doing that. They did it back with the Affordable Care Act stuff, right? And we're doing it again here when really these are basic constitutional rights that already exist. And why are we bargaining for those things if they should be done straight out of the gates?
Absolutely. And where our line is, I mean, this is a place where the American people are with us. They don't want ICE agents shooting Americans. They don't want ICE agents ripping young kids away from their families and using them as bait. They don't want a harassment of people in restaurants and grocery stores and bookstores and being followed to church. That's what I heard when I went to Minneapolis to Alex Pretty's memorial. By the way, the people there weren't like me, children of immigrants or even immigrants. They were third, fourth, fifth generation Minnesotans there talking about how it's like tyranny. And what they want is the Democratic Party to say, enough, not a dollar more. Tear down this agency that's violating our constitutional rights. Repeal the $75 billion. We don't have ICE terrorizing Americans and immigrants in this country. And I feel like we have not we're getting there, we're inching there, but we just need that moral clarity on this issue. Moral clarity on Epstein, moral clarity on Gaza, a new moral vision, a Democratic Party that actually stands for a constitution and people in the grassroots. I think that would give us the best chance, actually, of building a governing majority in 2026.
How is it then that you have found, Congressman, the secret sauce of finding a bipartisan issue, which, thank gosh, is a bipartisan issue of not catering to what I call the Epstein elite, this cabal of pedophiles that are being protected, this class of elites that have money, means, and influence to protect themselves and others from accountability, and yet executing people on the street at the hands of ICE seems to not have the moral clarity to be a bipartisan supported issue for Republicans.
It's been tough. The closest I've gotten is saying that they shouldn't have shot Alex Pretty just because he had a gun. And the Second Amendment is something that even some Republicans are rallying around. But you would think there would be more civil libertarians would be concerned about a federal agency that is out there harassing and killing and shooting American citizens. I mean, this is not actually a left or right issue. It's a matter of power, of the abuse of power against people's inalienable rights, as you pointed out. And it's unfortunate to me that the immigration issue has been so politicized that you cannot get Republicans. I have not been able to form that coalition. Maybe someone else will. But I am always looking for things like forming the Epstein coalition that we did.
Congressman Khanna, I am a proud fellow Asian. I like you being there, fighting this fight. I am always grateful for it. I know that you are relentless. That is the adjective I have been using for you. I will continue to use. I'm grateful for the privilege of your time. I know my viewers are as well. They are so invested in this and they care so much. So thank you for taking the time out of your incredibly busy schedule to spend it with me and to have us be more informed and to have us knowledge on this. We appreciate it.
Well, I'm privileged to be on here. You have been a fighter. And, the stereotype of Asian Americans, certainly of me, was, okay, he's a thoughtful guy and he makes good grades.
We're the model minority. We never say anything big or loud, right?
But I think we're showing that it's not just about fighting, but it's about fighting smartly. And I was joking. I said that my grandfather, who spent 4 years in jail in a British prison, must be wondering if, up in wherever he is, his grandson may be toppling the British monarchy. But the point is to fight and to fight smartly. And this is fighting an elite group of people who have abused power. And that's un-American.
Well, I will share a footnote as you and I part ways. I just did an episode on this channel about Peter Mandelson and his connections to Epstein and how the United Kingdom seems to be deciding that accountability is very real.
Absolutely.
With Keir Starmer's chief of staff stepping down. I mean, they're actually owning what's going on. Criminal investigations into Mandelson and others there. I mean, they've got that going for them at least. But here, we're just grateful for you and Congressman Tom Massey and others that have decided that there is a hill that you're willing to fight on. Thank you again, Congressman Khanna, for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Really an honor.
Thanks. Katie Phang here. We launched the Katie Phang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. Straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.